Today I will be talking about what I have learned from the sociological perspective according to Newman from his book Identities and Inequalities. It is a way of examining everyday social life that emphasizes the interplay between social forces and personal characteristics in influencing people's thoughts, actions, feelings, judgments, and interactions. There are similarities and differences between all humans. Every day you are faced with either new situations, interactions, or new people. Our job should be finding a way to balance the things that make us dissimilar with the things that make us alike, according to Newman. In doing this, one would have to get to know the person before jumping to assumptions about them. Who you are makes a difference in the society based on skin color, whether you are a male or a female, wealthy or poor, or even heterosexual or homosexual. People judge others based off what they observe. If they do not like a certain type of religion one practices, then they probably would not associate themselves with someone of that religion. However, even though these stereotypes happen, people try to find things in common with one another in order to get along. 312 million of us in this society are able to live together in a reasonably stable way, because we have many things in common that we can easily count on, according to Newman, 2012. People appreciate how everyday knowledge of social interactions are understood by the majority of people living here. Newman gave a great example. If you stick out your hand, someone then knows to shake it. It is these little things that we take for granted, but appreciate them very much. Now, let's take a closer look at how people learn who they are. One learns from a very young age about gender. Children's parents hand them toys or clothes based on whether they are a girl or a boy. They are told how they should act in certain situations and what they should or should not do. The Newman's book brings up gender-neutral socialization. We should allow boys and girls to experience both typical boy and typical girl toys. A boy should not be expected to have to play sports or like cars, but instead maybe he wants to play with a doll. However, according to Martin from his book Sex Roles, boys are viewed more negatively the more feminine behavior they portray than girls who demonstrate more masculine behavior. Gender identities in today's society have become a popular subject. We live in a society where you are either considered a male or a female. This is known as sexual dichotomy. However, more and more individuals are coming out and announcing that even though they were born a male or a female, they now consider themselves of the opposite sex. One tends to place these individuals into certain categories and identify them in either an essentialism view, where society incorporates the people into everyday life, or a constructionism view, where a society that is constructed from the people's ideas. It is how we choose as a society to label things. Newman, 2012. However, whether one believes that an individual is born feeling like they are of the opposite sex or that they choose to become transgender, one is bound to cross paths with someone who has made this decision. We are used to a heteronormative society where we base everything off of heterosexuality. This is what society is used to. Therefore, anything other than this causes fear for that person and shame, and they may feel like they have to hide it or stay in the closet because it is not considered what is known as normal. Now let's take a look at race versus ethnicity. Each term has a very different meaning. Race is biological traits. Newman gives examples such as skin color, color and texture of hair, and shape of eyes, nose, or head. Ethnicity is the opposite. It is defined as non-biological traits such as shared ancestry, culture, history, language, patterns of behaviors, and beliefs. According to the Stanford University, genetic differences within any designated racial group are often greater than differences between racial groups. What this tells us is that just because you were born white or black does not mean that every white person or every black person has the same genetic makeup. Therefore, what you look like will not match all people in a certain group, but rather the shared experience of how others perceive you within that certain group. There are advantages and disadvantages within each race or ethnicity. Not everyone is the same. This leads into stereotypes. In 4th grade, David Newman was punched in the face for no reason other than the fact that he was of a different religion than the other children. In today's society, we still judge people off race, gender, religion, and sexuality. We might not openly go straight towards violence as much as people used to. However, there are still prejudicial thoughts that come to mind when you hear one of those categories. Not all people are like this, but it is still a large problem today. Newman brought up great examples of some of these stereotypes. For example, women are seen as expected mothers. But when you view a man pushing a stroller or changing a diaper, then you are more likely to notice and show approval towards him rather than a mother demonstrating the exact same thing. With all of these stereotypes, people are having to live up to these expectations already made for them before they were even born. For example, all Asians are good at math and science. These stereotypes can create damaging expectations and limit people's freedom to be unique individuals, according to Newman, 2012. Therefore, in everyday life, there is always an option to change the way you see people. Take them out of these categories that society has created and get to know that individual. Make your own conclusions based on how that individual portrays themselves. There are two types of identity classes that a person is categorized under: social class and the caste system. Social class is where people share the same wealth or income with each other, and the caste system is the socioeconomical status that you were born with. So you cannot change the caste system, but you can change your social class. You are either considered upper class, middle class, working class, lower class, or underclass. In the United States, the upper class makes up the top 5% of the population. The middle class is 45%, working class 35%, and the lower and under class is 15% of the population. The income gap has grown in the United States over the years. According to the U.S. Bureau of Census, the average annual income of the top 5% of U.S. households is $180,000. While the average annual income of the bottom 20% of the households is under $21,000. This means that anyone making $22,162,000 a year is below the poverty line. Therefore, if someone is right above this line, then that means they are not considered poor. But if they fall below it, then they are. This is a huge income gap, and it does not appear it will lessen anytime soon. Whichever category someone falls in, there are always stereotypes for each one. If someone is in the lower class or underclass, then people assume that they must be uneducated and people look down on them. In the working class, people are considered unskilled and become invisible while they are doing the jobs that no one else wants to do, and yet they are the ones that are keeping our society running. In knowing all of this is happening, we must take matters into our own hands and adjust accordingly. Just because someone looks and acts differently than you does not mean we need to judge them and make assumptions about them before we get to know them. We should not stereotype gender roles. In the healthcare field, if there is a child and you want to give them a sticker for being good, then one should not automatically assume a girl wants the princess stickers, but instead she might like the superhero ones. If you cross paths with a homosexual or a transgender individual, then one should not judge or stereotype them. This is the way they feel or their choice, and so who are we to tell them they cannot be the gender that they feel they were born to be? Just because someone has the same skin color as you does not mean they are genetically or physically the same as you. Skin is just a color. What truly matters is underneath. You might even share similar ethic beliefs with someone of a different race than with some of the people who are the same race as you. Remember, stereotypes are just that, stereotypes. They are not true for the majority of the gender, race, religion, or sexuality. Give people a chance to show you who they are, not who their whole race is, but on an individual basis. And finally, do not judge someone off of their social class. An individual who is considered in the lower class may be just as smart, if not smarter than you, but they are going through a rough patch in their life. In conclusion, sociology is an enlightening and shows us how we have behaved in the past and how our society has come a long way since then. We continue to make progress towards equality, but we have still a long way until everyone is treated equally. All we can do is change our views and become more open-minded towards others. It is not our job to judge others. It is our job to take responsibility for our own actions and thoughts towards others.